Hello and welcome back to Evanescent Verities. If you've been following our off-grid relocation journeys, from Portugal to Spain, today we're exploring one of Europe's most evocative yet underrated possibilities, going off-grid in France. And specifically, we're going to deep dive into the top 5 regions for off-grid living and what you'll realistically need to budget for in 2026. Whether you're dreaming of a self-sufficient lifestyle, remote working in nature, or simply escaping the urban grind, this video is for you. Let's begin. How we selected the top 5 regions. Before we jump into each region, here's how we chose them. When looking at off-grid living in France, we considered affordability of rural land and dwellings. The lower the cost, the stronger the value for self-sufficiency. Climate and natural resources, sunshine, rainfall, access to water, wood supply for heating, good terrain for solar. Accessibility and infrastructure. Even off-grid you'll want access roads, perhaps a vehicle and a local services nearby. Local regulatory and tax environment, making sure you understand property taxes, local planning, and what off-grid systems are permitted. Market trends and growth potential, where rural properties are still undervalued, but sought after by buyers seeking lifestyle change. We then reviewed data for price trends and tax realities as of 2025. For example, in France, rural properties saw a price increase of about 2.1% in recent times. And property taxe foncière, is still rising on average by 1.7% in many communes. With that framework in mind, let's move region by region. Our first region is Nouvelle-Aquitaine in the southwest of France. Why here? It ticks many boxes. Good sunshine, especially near Dordogne-Gironde, lots of rural land options, and still relatively affordable compared to coastal hotspots. Property cost estimate. While specific per hectare data is harder to find, rural properties in more affordable areas can be very reasonably priced. For example, some rural properties in low-cost departments offer houses from under €100,000. We can estimate for off-grid suitability. Perhaps a small holding with 1-2 hectares plus a dwelling might cost in the range €150,000 to €300,000, depending on condition and location. What you'll get, what to check. Good solar potential, wood supply for heating in forested areas. You'll still be within a few hours of larger towns for services. Land may require renovation. Local tax, regulatory notes. You will still pay taxe foncière annually. This region's rural communes will follow the national trend of minimum 1.7% increase. Why for off-grid? Strong candidate due to balance of affordability, rural nature and community support for lifestyle buyers. Region 2 is Occitanie. Think southern France, near the foothills of the Pyrenees, lots of nature, plenty of sunshine, and still many rural pockets. Property cost estimate. According to listings, rural house prices are more affordable in such regions. For example, one source suggests average rural property in less dense areas may drop to €1,643 per square meter. So for our off-grid scenario, imagine a 100 square meters dwelling on 1 to 2 hectares could cost from perhaps €120,000 to €250,000, with variation depending on access, condition, and land. What to check? Water access is very important. Rain collection, well, terrain may be more rugged, access roads and winter conditions. Taxes, regulation. Same national taxes apply, but local communes may have their own additional rules for second homes or outbuildings. Why off-grid friendly? Excellent climate, reducing heating needs. Natural environment suited for self-sufficiency, still a lifestyle buyer market. Region 3 is Centre-Val de Loire, central France. A little less glamorous but very much worth considering if you want affordable rural land aligned with off-grid potential. Property cost estimate. One article notes that rural house prices in some extremely low-cost apartments may go from under €700 per m2 in the lowest-cost areas. For a small holding of say 1 to 2 hectares and modest dwelling, you might look at something like €100,000 to €200,000 in certain parts. Things to check. Less sunshine than Mediterranean areas, so solar system should be carefully sized. Wood fuel might be more needed in winter. Accessibility to major services somewhat further. Tax, regulation, same property tax rules apply. Tax advice, non-residents need to pay taxe foncière and possibly taxed habitation if considered second home. Why for off-grid? Very good value, lots of land, and potential to build up a self-sufficient lifestyle without extremely high upfront cost. Region 4 is Brittany in northwest France. Cooler climate than south, but tremendous character, coast plus countryside, and many rural holdings. Property cost estimate. While exact per hectare prices vary, the national average for rural areas suggests quite modest pricing compared to prime zones. According to expert commentary, national average house price, €2,930 per square metre in June 2025. For off-grid you might budget €120,000 to €250,000 for the land and dwelling combo in a decent rural spot, perhaps higher if near coast or with sea views. Considerations. Summers are milder, cloud cover more frequent, so solar yield less than south. Heating demand a bit higher, but very good wood forest resources in parts. Access to ferry ports may be handy. Taxes, regulation, same as above. Note some communes may offer tax reliefs for eco-renovation of older properties. Why off-grid? A strong option if you don't need the sun belt and want something a bit cooler, more temperate, with unique culture and landscapes. Finally, Region 5, Auvergne-Rhône Alps. Think interior France, mountains and forests, generous natural resources, slightly more rugged but great potential for a serious off-grid lifestyle. Property cost estimate. Because terrain is more challenging and access may be harder, land and dwelling combos may vary widely. But you can find undervalued rural holdings compared to coastal or flat regions. With rural trends showing modest growth and good demand for lifestyle buyers, you might expect something like €150,000 to €300,000 for 1 to 3 hectares and dwelling, depending on condition and remoteness. What to check? Road access, especially in winter, microclimate, solar wiring when facing slopes, heating wood supply. Taxes, regulation. Note rural mountain communes may have special tax reliefs or incentives for renovation, but still you must pay standard property tax and be mindful of local planning for off-grid systems. Why off-grid? If you want full immersion in nature, maybe livestock, forest wood for heating, great views and a cloud of mist kind of lifestyle, this region offers a strong option. Now let's talk about ongoing costs and taxes. One of the often overlooked parts of relocating off-grid in France. Taxe foncière. This is the annual local property ownership tax. It applies whether you live in the property or not. The base is the cadastral rental value times the rate voted by the commune. Recent data show typical minimum increases of about 1.7% annually in many communes. Taxe d'habitation. For many primary residences, it's been largely abolished, but for second homes, off-grid properties that aren't your main residence, there may still be a liability. Capital gains tax. If you sell later and make a gain, for non-residents the standard rate is 19%, plus social charges, 17.2% on the gain. Other costs to factor. Maintenance of off-grid systems, solar panels, batteries, water pumps, heating wood or biomass, access roads, travel to nearest services. Also, your relocation costs, residency, language, integration. So when budgeting, don't just look at purchase price. Build in say €1,000 to €3,000 a year, or more depending on scale, for ongoing system and land costs plus tax. You'll also want a contingency fund for equipment replacement, such as battery banks, etc. Looking ahead to 2026, what can you expect? The property market in France is predicted to show moderate growth of around 2 to 4% annually through 2025-2026. Rural and lifestyle buyer markets are still attractive, especially with remote working being normalized. Areas like Gers, Loire, etc. are being mentioned as growth zones. Because off-grid, lifestyle buyers are long-term and less flip-oriented, you may find more value in slightly remote regions than in hot tourist zones. That said, due to rising costs of energy systems, build renovation costs escalate. So your upfront budget may trend higher if you require good off-grid infrastructure. Bottom line, secure good value now, size your systems for long-term, and treat this as a 10-20-year lifestyle investment, not a quick flip. Here's your off-grid action plan if you're seriously thinking. Choose your top 2 preferred regions from the list above. Set a budget range. Purchase plus off-grid infrastructure and contingency. Visit both regions in person. Spend a week in each. Talk to locals. Assess water, access, and sun-wind conditions. Engage a local notaire and verify zoning planning regulations, especially for off-grid systems. Shortlist properties where land size and condition allow solar, water, and heating systems. Get quotes for off-grid setup, solar and batteries, rainwater collection, heating wood biomass, and insulation. Calculate ongoing costs, tax foncière, plus system maintenance, plus travel and community services. Plan for the long term. Think 10 to 20 years horizon, maintenance, replacement of batteries, and evolving lifestyle needs. Document your journey. Once you pick up your property, start small. Maybe live part-time for 6 to 12 months, then transition to full-time once systems proven. Take action. Don't wait for perfect, because the infrastructure, land, and lifestyle you want may become harder to find. To wrap up, France offers exceptional opportunity for off-grid living in 2026, if you approach it with realistic planning, deep research, and a long-term mindset. From Nouvelle-Aquitaine to Occitanie, from central Loire valleys to Brittany's coast and Auvergne's mountains, there are landscapes, communities, and properties waiting for people ready to commit. If you're driven by freedom, by nature, by self-reliance, this might be your next big chapter. And for us here on Evanescent Verities, this is more than property. It's about creating life and legacy. If you found value in this video, please hit like, subscribe if you haven't yet. We're on our way to 500 subscribers and beyond. Tap the bell so you don't miss upcoming off-grid relocation content. And comment below. Which of the 5 regions would you pick and why? We'll respond to as many as we can. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep planning, but above all, keep acting. We'll see you in the next one.